What's up? It's Book Reviews here for another one. It is time for matchup number 2 in the Fantasy Trilogy March Madness Tournament. Now, if you watched the last one, you will know where we are at, but I'm going to go ahead and just refresh everybody's memory. We have only done one matchup so far, and that was our number 4 and number 5 seed, Way of Shadows and Promise of Blood. Promise of Blood did come out on top. Today we are discussing up here in the left-hand corner of the bracket the number 1 seed and the number 8 seed going up against each other in this first round matchup, and that is the 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin at the number 1 seed up against Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett at the number 8 seed. Now, we do have review videos of each of these books, so you can go back and watch those if you want our detailed thoughts, but we are just today going to discuss the criteria that we have for this tournament to see who is going to move on in this matchup. So welcome back. It's Book Reviews. I'm 21 Savage. With me, as always, is Drake, and we're excited to do yet another. How you feeling today, my guy?
Dude, this could be anyone's race. I really have no idea who's going to win this matchup.
Dude, I have no idea how this one's going to go. Dude, I have not got a single idea. If you have watched our review videos, you probably know that's not true. But we're going to get into it here. So to lay the foundation for everyone just really quickly, again,
brother.
Our number 1 seed is the 5th Season. This is number 1, the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. This came back out in 2015. 260,000 ratings with a 4.31 overall. High rated by a lot of people. That's our number 1 seed. Down at the number 8 seed going up against it is Foundryside. Number 1 in the Founders trilogy, Robert Jackson Bennett. 40,000 ratings with a 4.19 overall.
And as our Lord
that's
would
where
say,
we're at.
As our Lord would say, the first should be last, and the last shall be first.
If that ain't ever been true, it is true today. But let's see how it all pans out. Okay, so we're gonna jump right into it for this second matchup. Thanks for being here. Like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying this series. There will be many more all throughout March. So thanks for being here. Let's get into it. So we're gonna start off. We're gonna go 5th Season for the first rating each time. And we're going to start right off the bat with writing. So the first of our 5 criteria and how we decide who wins this matchup is writing. Andrew, why don't you tell me from 1 to 5? Yeah, yep. 1 to 5. We are doing decimals, so technically it's 1 to 100, but 1 to 5. Tell me where you've got the writing.
This is tough, brother. I'm going to have to go maybe a 2, a flat 2.
Okay.
There are times when the writing was good, but I cannot go higher than 2 solely for the POVs where you are. It's you wake up and just to clarify for any of those who've not read it, there is like POV switches to where the story is presented in different point of views. So you have your third person chapters. You have, what is that, fourth person when it's you?
You've got first, second, and third.
Okay.
I believe.
So anyway,
I forget which one is which technically, but
I was not a fan. So
no.
If you watch our watch our non-spoiler / video, and if you want more for that, but yeah, 2.
Yeah, you'll see our full thoughts, and you can get spoiler thoughts. We're not going to spoil anything in these matchups, but if you want to see it, you can go check it out. So you got it at 2.0 for writing on 5th Season. Dude, I'm surprised that I gave this lower than you because you disliked this book even more than I did. I give it a 1.7 on the writing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And pretty much everything you said, I reiterate. This book was just not written for me, which we said in our review. It's just not the style I like. I just really did not, to really get deep into it. I mean, I felt like half the book I was being told how I should feel about it and what I should be thinking. And I don't like being pandered to like I'm an idiot. So I did not enjoy that writing. So that's a 2.0 and a 1.7. So Foundryside, where have you got the writing on this guy?
So as I think about this book, I think it flows really well. Honestly, I don't know if this is like taking away from writing, but it's not super complex, so I feel like that's a bonus. But then it's weird. Like if it's not super complex, is that it's a bonus to an extent, and then at certain points, like it is kind of almost a little bit of a negative, in a weird, what I'm saying? Like because it's so. And maybe that's just the good writing style he has, but this book was so easy to read. It's so easy to like crank it out too. You're never confused. I will say though, there were some things and this will probably affect my plot rating as well, but I'm going to throw it also into writing. There were just times where I think he could have repeated some stuff more than once. I think some of the surprises that come on later, later on, I think with just some writing nuances to where it's just small little just a couple more small reminders, because they were there enough to where technically you should understand every twist and turn because there is the breadcrumbs, but sometimes the breadcrumbs are just so thin. It's like I just want a little bit more. So I'm going to say 4.1.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not far off you. I'm 4.3 on the writing for Foundryside. So I really, really enjoyed it. I don't think it was perfect, but I really, really enjoyed it. Again, it's all about the writing. Read. This is it was so fun, man. Even in the beginning when it's a much smaller scale story, I just really couldn't put this one down, man. I thought it was so good. It reminded me a lot of Brian McClellan's Powder of Blood, only in the sense that the writing was delivered in just what felt like almost perfect way to me. That no matter what was happening, even if it was small scale, I was just still really into it. So yeah, 4.3 for me. So on to characters, number 2 in our 5 criteria. And starting again with the 5th season, if you don't mind, I'll go first on this one. Yep. I gave the characters a 2.3. I liked the idea of some of the characters, but not a one of them felt fleshed out to me. And for a first book, that's really important. I've got to really care about these characters. And I did, to a sense, by the end. I did have a little bit of, I hope things go well, I guess. But there was just not enough for me, again. And this is a very well-received book. And I can just go ahead and tell you now, if you're not already figuring it out, we don't have a ton of great things to say about this one, either one of us. I don't think. No. But this was just another one as far as the criteria where it did not do it for me. The characters were, again, there were moments, it's not a 0 or a 1, but it just was not enough for me. It was not enough. I agree. Okay, so that's a 2.3 for me.
So I'm going to give it a 2.5. I agree with everything you said. There are characters I liked. I wish there was more development. That's where I'm at. Yeah. Like, without giving away too much of this book, I just didn't feel like each POV had enough development for me. I feel like the development is sadly something that we're just supposed to assume is occurring, but then within each storyline, we're not getting a lot of development. So, and that was unfortunate to me because I do think that she has something there and she just kind of fumbles it. So it was definitely better than the writing for me. But it's just more, I want to see a character grow, and they can grow in a negative way too. I just felt like, I feel like all the characters, I say all, I mean the main ones, nothing really happens with them. So as far as development wise, but some of them I thought were interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna say 2.5.
2.5. Okay, so what did you have for Foundryside on characters? Where are you rating that?
Characters for Foundryside? Oh, for sure. I'm going. This is tough. Is it better than the writing for me? Characters is tough for me for Foundryside because there's not a single character I don't like. There's not one that I don't like. But out of these, it might be the weakest for me. Like, out of all of these categories, as I'm thinking about it, I think it is the weakest. And that's not to say it's bad. Again, it's just, it's not the strongest element that's going to keep you coming back for this. I'm going to say like a 3. I want to say like a 3.9. It feels almost blasphemous saying that, but
Dude, we're on one. And I don't know if anyone will believe this, but we do not discuss these numbers with each other. We just rapid fire how we're feeling. Bro, I'm at a 3.9. I liked them.
I love that.
I liked every character, but there just wasn't quite enough of the development to push it over that 4.0 mark for me.
Agreed.
So while I enjoyed it and while I'm pretty positive we're going to get a lot more in the next book.
That's what I was going to say. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, like there was enough for a first book, which puts it over the 3.5 mark, like more than like plenty for you to come back and love it. But like you said, that was a really good thing. You said it's not the thing that's keeping you coming back, in my opinion.
No, it's not. And that's fine. Like that, I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I think that's fine. So yeah, definitely for a first book, it's definitely good enough. By far good enough.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So on to the plot. Number 3 of our criteria is just the plot or the story, if you will, how it progresses, how it flows, that kind of thing. So 5th season, where are you at on plot?
Plot is another tough thing for me. I think I think what she sets out to do is creative. So I want to try and give props when I can because there's not many to give
Yeah.
here. So I am trying to be as unbiased as possible, even though I strongly dislike this book. I'm still trying to be
Yeah.
fair to like originality and
Sure.
uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I like the plot more than writing and characters. So I'm
I
gonna
agree.
say maybe like a 2.6 because it's not much more, but two
Yeah.
sixes I think where I'm gonna stand.
Okay. I'd like that answer. Mine's a little higher. And kind of the same thing you said. I'm trying to be as fair as possible. As you said, there are a lot of elements to the thing about this book is there is so much potential for me to love it. I told you, and if you watched our initial video when we went over all these books before we read any of them, I had a lot of faith in this book. It seemed like a world building, epic like type thing that I would really like. And there
Yeah.
was a lot of that stuff there. It just didn't go where I would have enjoyed it. Not that I could have written it better, not that I have a particular idea, but it just wasn't satisfying. But because of the potential and maybe even the potential of things that could happen in the future and how cool some of the moments were, brief as they were, there were some moments that were pretty sick.
I agree.
I gave it a flat 3.0
Okay.
on plot.
I think that's fair.
And it was definitely the highest rating I had for this book.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So on to, not by a ton, but it is the highest. On to Foundryside. Where do you have the plot for Foundryside?
I described it as a slow burn on my rating and whatnot, which probably is not like necessarily the most accurate description of the beginning of this book. This is just so intertwined with like sometimes with world building in a way. I thought it was good. I like it. Again, it's not the strongest for me. I would say at the end it really ramps up. So he really makes up some ground towards the end, and that's gonna play into a couple of these categories here for me. But I'm gonna say like a 3.4. I think
Really?
is where I'm at with plot.
Okay.
Maybe
No,
3.5.
hey.
I'm going 3.5. I'm
Okay.
gonna stand on 3.5.
Okay. This may be the biggest chasm
Differential.
between us so far. So for plot on Foundryside, I actually gave it a 4.1, man. I thought that, again, obviously there's room for it to be better within a 4.1, but it still got over that 4.0 mark and just a little more for me just because, like I said, even when the plot's small, I enjoyed it, man. The plot could have stayed as small as it was within like the first half of the book throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
And this rating really would not have changed much for me, like overall rating and enjoyment of the book, if he had just kept it on that scale. And that does go back to the writing. I think those are kind of intertwined together. I think you just said that. But the story itself is a little bit different. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it, man. And then, like you said, once it picks up in the towards the end, like the last third of it, it gets even better. So, yeah, 4.1 on the plot for me.
I like that rating.
All right, cool. So on to world building. If you haven't watched our other video, we did clarify world building is going to include anything that obviously goes with world building and as well as a magic system. I don't know if that's always lumped in with world building, but we are considering that within the world building rating. So starting off with 5th season, what'd you give this one?
So this is going to be my highest category because I think this is the most original, and this is, I think, why you were so excited for this book because of the potential of this, because I think she has a lot of really original ideas here that are pretty well fleshed out, honestly, to an extent, like enough for a book one. You don't really get a ton of answers in this book. I mean, that may be a spoiler. I mean, a lot of the questions you have at the beginning of the book, you're going to still have at the end of the book. But as far as like originality goes and like fascination, this was the most fascinating part of the book to me, was the world and the magic system. So what kept me going. So I'm going to honestly give this like a 3.5 or what? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, I think it's better. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Okay. And you may have influenced me a little bit here because I just bumped it up 0.2 to put it right at 3.0. So I said that plot was the highest, but plot and world building are going to be the same for me on this one. Because you're right. The world building was cool. We just didn't get much of it. So it doesn't get over that over really much higher than 3 for me because it's just not fleshed out enough. But again, going back to just the potential and the ideas, where the imagination can go. Yeah, the magic for sure. But I did like the, I liked, I can't spoil anything, but just different elements that briefly come in different moments of the book were, again, some of the most exciting parts because there are moments that are so sick in this book.
Yeah, I like the dark academia moments a lot.
Yeah, those are cool.
Which I don't think that's a spoiler. There is, a school for magic in this. Like those kinds of things I enjoy. I like those elements.
Right. Cool. So that's world building 3.0 for me. On 5th season, on to Foundryside. What did you give world building for Foundryside? And I think this one, I don't know, mine might surprise you. I don't know.
So this one for sure is my favorite part about this book. It's going to be the highest for me out of all of these categories. I love a good companion, and I know that kind of builds into the world building and the magic, and we won't spoil any of that, but I think it's really well written, and so that also helps boost the world building / magic for me because the way he writes it, it seems like, oh, this is a complicated magic system, but he's not making it too complicated to where it's going to bog me down. I will say sometimes in this book, the magic system kind of compares to me to Blood Over Brighthaven, to where it's almost an analytical magic system that's kind of scripted, and it kind of gets a little dense sometimes in Blood Over Brighthaven. And so this is, I feel like, I don't want to say a dumbed down version, but less get in the weeds about let's learn the scripting and this kind of stuff.
Because Blood Over Brighthaven was like that. It was a little complicated and dense, like even more than this. So I get what you're saying, how it has a little bit of that.
So I like the way he did this a little more than I like Blood Over Brighthaven still. We'll watch our review on it if you haven't. But it compares that to me, but then it goes like on another scale that obviously Blood Over Brighthaven doesn't, that I'm way more fascinated in now, especially with how this book ends. I'm like, okay, what's going on? There's so much mystery and intrigue. I'm going to say like a 4.4 for world building and magic system.
Nice. Okay, I love that because mine is just 0.1 above you at a 4.5. Everything you said, I mean, again, I can't spoil anything, but there are moments in this book that and maybe it's just me, maybe I just really like his writing or I just love what he put together in this book, but there are moments where a couple times where I had feelings akin, maybe not the exact same, but akin to feelings that I've had reading Stormlight before. There were a couple moments where I just felt this huge epic vibe coming off the scene or whatever he was kind of letting you into. There's essentially, without spoiling it, ways that you get a peek into the world building to not spoil it. And those moments were just so hype for me. So 4.5, man, 4.5 or 4.6 and up, I feel like is the Stormlight level world building for me.
I agree.
And it's not quite there yet, but it's right on the cusp. Like, depending on what this next book looks like, it could be right there. I have a lot of high hopes for where the world building goes throughout this series based on this first book. So yeah, 4.5. And that leads us to our final criteria, which is simply excitement for the sequel. Now, obviously, this is going to be essentially a conglomeration of the rest of our scores to a degree, because obviously if the rest of the scores have been super high, excitement's going to be high. But we like to throw it in there just to add another criteria. So I'm actually going to go first on 5th season here. My excitement for the 5th season is a 0.8. That is my excitement for
I love that
reading the second book of this series. The only way at any point soon in my life that I would read this is if my house burnt down and it was one of the only books that made it out. And I could not buy any books. Like, I'd read it if I had to and I had nothing else to read. I would, truly. There's a small part of me that would like to know where this is all going. But because of everything else, there are way too many books that are much more up my alley and for me that keep me from having really any desire to read this book, or the follow-up to this book, I should say. So 5th season is a 0.8 for me, man. I am not excited at all to continue this series. I don't know. I mean, because we can obviously see where this matchup is going. I do not know that I ever will finish this series. I have doubts.
I'm glad you went sub 1. because
Yeah, I had
dude, I
to.
was
I
like,
had
can
to.
I? Is it? Can I go sub 1? Because I want to, but how
You can
disrespectful
go
is it to go
Sub-Zero
1?
if you'd like.
Dude, I want to give it a 0. I genuinely do, but I have to
Sub-Zero.
think realistically about: is there 0 chance I finish this book? No. Is there less than 1% chance? Yes. The only way, I'll back down further. If I burned, if of all the books I ever had burned, and there was no way for me to read again, I'm not reading ever again. The only way I'm reading this book is if someone pays us money to read this book and review it on this channel. I'll do it then, but that is literally the only way I am reading and finishing this series. So
And it would
I'm
have
going
to
give
be
it
a mighty sum.
yes, at least $20. And that's a
At
lot.
least, dude. Pay
But-
my rent.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a 0.5. So because I just
0.5, fair. Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna read this before I am, so I feel like I need to be underneath you, and that's
Dude,
just that's
I
where we're
love
gonna
when
lay.
you're underneath me.
I love it too.
I appreciate it. Okay, so we're clearly not excited for that one. I'm going to go first as well on my excitement for Foundryside. I am so excited to continue this series. I'm at a 4.8, dude. I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
That may sound way too high, but
It's pretty high.
I could put this, honestly, above like all the books that we have and different things that I've started in. Like, I'm almost at the point where this might be like the one that I'm most excited to read next.
I think it has the
in
best
all of
ending
the
so
books.
far.
Man, it's so good, and it has some closure to it. I think there's a little bit of like, like in film, you always hear like say Chris Nolan with the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
You always hear like in those situations a director say we never planned for a sequel, like this was a one-off thing. And I feel like books are not quite the same in the sense that because books, there's less of a, when you're filming a movie, the budget's got to do this, you got to have this profit, whatever the studio's got to decide. There's all these people. And that's true to a degree with books, I believe, but I think it's a little easier for an author to go, okay, I'm writing a trilogy and that's just what it is. But I do like when a book still has closure and can be read on its own and not picked back up for a while and that be okay. He doesn't quite do that. There's not a ton of closure at the end of this book for me, but the ending is still so good. And there's enough closure for it to kind of close the chapter, close the book, if you will. But it just has me so excited. So some of my excitement might be because he clearly left it open for the next book.
Yeah.
But for better or worse, I'm at a 4.8, man. Where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I'm at a 4.7. I'm at a
Let's go,
4.7.
man.
I wish I could remember off the top of my head what we rated the other ones. Because this one to me
Yeah,
is
me too.
it ends with the biggest cliffhanger of all the books that we've read so far, of the 4 we've read.
Yeah, and so compare it to the other winner, we only have one other winner so far, which was Promise of Blood in the first matchup. I love Promise of Blood. I also gave it a 5, and I'm very excited for that sequel. I think I felt more excitement for the Foundryside.
It has a stronger ending. I think Promise of
it
Blood
does.
overall is better. Which we'll
I'd
see
agree.
here with the ratings, but the ending is way more exciting. Just because Promise of Blood is kind of like really exciting throughout the whole book. Like the stakes seem like higher. Well, I don't know, dude. It gets pretty high at the end of that one too.
It does.
But yeah.
Excitement's high. So let's start adding these numbers up and see where we're at. I'm so curious to see who ends up winning this one.
So
man.
I already have them loaded up.
Oh, you do? Oh,
I'll be like that, cuz.
go. Let us know.
Be
Drum roll,
like
please.
that. So for the 5th season, drum roll, we have a 21.9.
That is not good. That is very low.
21.9. That is out of 50, folks. That is out of 50. Wow. So that illustrates what I rated it. See, that I think we've actually kind of cracked the code, like us combining these, because I rated it a 2 out of 5 on Goodreads, and I think actually, what did I rate it? Let me look really quick. Because I rated it in my comment, like in my what do you call that? Review. Let's see what I put. I wonder if I put 2.1. No way I did, right? Wait. Oh, 2.3. I gave it a 2.3 out of 5 in my notes. So that's funny that's where we're at there. To move to Foundryside, what is 31.7 plus 9.5? So we have 32.2 So 32.2 plus 9.
That's 41.2.
41.2. There it is.
Wow.
So 41.2. That's pretty solid, dude.
That's a solid rating. Yeah. So Promise of Blood, I do remember, I believe, got around 42. So you're right. We have cracked a code here. We did barely like Promise of Blood as a book a little more, even though our excitement may be higher for Foundryside 2 or Founders Trilogy 2. But yeah, dude, we're actually hitting it on with these numbers. Maybe it's not as fascinating as we think.
I gave it a
is,
4.1 out of 5. I mean, in my actual like thing on Goodreads, like on in my description deal. That's crazy.
So what you're telling me is that Foundryside, according to its Lit Book Reviews numbers, has doubled the 5th season.
I would say
what you're telling me is that the number 8 seed doubled the amount of points of the number 1 seed in the March Madness Fantasy Trilogy tournament.
I would say so. And I would say, like, especially on a broad scale, in a vacuum, certain people are obviously going to enjoy the 5th season more than they're going to enjoy Foundryside. But if we're talking about the general public, there is no way the general, like, broad audience public is going to enjoy 5th season more than Foundryside. So if anything, we're not, like, if you're any person, you are going to like Foundryside. Like, I feel comfortable with saying that. I do not feel comfortable with saying that any person will like the 5th season. Some people really may, but I'm way more comfortable recommending Foundryside as a book to somebody because I think it just has more broad appeal to really everyone, honestly. So that being said with that, we do need to update this, though, to where it has the second book.
Yes, I've just been doing this to show the first one so we can kind of keep it up. But yeah, we'll do it with the second book from here on out.
I can do it right.
Oh, right there, and there it is.
Dude. Yep, they just switched.
So here we are. Here's where our bracket is. So next up, we are going to have the Founders Trilogy up against the Powder Mage Trilogy as far as the left side of the bracket is concerned. That's in round 2. What you are going to see next is either going to be Nevernight versus Shadow of What Was Lost. Okay, so what you're going to see next is the first round matchup of the number 2 and number 7 seeds. That's going to be between Nevernight by Jay Kristoff and The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington, I believe is how you say it. So thanks for sticking around. This is matchup number 2. This is the first round. Keep an eye out. We're going to have these videos coming out all March. Let us know what you think of our ratings, if your bracket would look the same. And It's Lit Book Reviews. We'll see you in the next one. Happy March Madness.
See you.